and yeah, we're just gonna see what has happened. Let me know where you guys are watching from. We're just gonna do some Reddit stories in a moment. So yeah, good morning. How's everyone doing? Um, this is the first time we're connecting with some of you. If this is your first time watching, we like to do Reddit stories here, and I like this as a little way to connect with everyone. Um, but yeah, so we're going to be doing Am I the A-hole today? We've got a few Reddit stories lined up for everyone. Oh, we've got some people watching from York. That's very interesting. Hi, Queen. But yeah, so let's jump right in. There's quite a few people that have joined already. So the first title is Am I the a-hole for refusing to change someone's baby diaper? So my wife and I have been married for about 10 plus years and we have a few kids. My sister-in-law and her husband have had a baby about 2 years ago. There's been no major complaints. They just tend to ask for things, people to do stuff that I wouldn't think they'd do themselves. They'll come over to our house, they live about an hour away or so, and they'll ask ahead of time if we have their kids' favorite crackers on hands. Why they don't just pack the crackers, I don't know. They're well off and money isn't really an issue. If one baby leaves the room, they'll ask one of us, my wife or kids, to be in charge of the baby, even if the other parent is right there, just scrolling on their phone or something. But whenever I say something to my wife, she says I'm being too much. The other day, we were having dinner at my mother-in-law's house when the baby had a poopy diaper. My sister-in-law looks at me and says in the sweetest voice, "Uncle, can you change the diaper?" She frequently does this when we're there, but this was her first time I was asked. I answered politely. I said, "No, sorry. I don't really do that." And she said, "You don't do diapers?" I said, "No, I don't do other kids' diapers. If their mom or dad is around, I mean, if I'm babysitting, sure thing. But yeah, if the parents are around, I just feel like it's their job to do it." So my sister-in-law looks like she's ready to cry, and she says, "Well, I feel selfish." I smiled and tried to set her at ease. Not trying to make you feel anyway, just telling you a boundary is all. The table got really awkward as she got up and did the diaper. Afterwards, my wife blamed me for making my sister-in-law feel bad. I could have just changed the diaper, not trying to make anyone feel bad. But I've had 3 kids and I always took responsibility. I watched them, I packed for them, and I changed them. I'm not looking to be a secondary parent for this kid. So if you guys are just tuning in, do you think this guy's being selfish by not changing his sister-in-law's diaper? I think you guys should react in chat. Thumbs up if you think he's right, and maybe a poopy emoji if you think he's being the a-hole here. Personally, I think he's being completely reasonable in this situation. He set a boundary, and that's that. He's sticking with it. But yeah, if you guys are just joining in, we're doing Am I the A-hole on Reddit. This guy in the first story didn't want to change the diaper for his sister-in-law when she was there and she could have easily done it herself. But yeah, let's move on to the next story. Am I the a-hole for not telling a man that the research he was mansplaining to me was my own? I, 33 female, work in a very small, technical specific male-dominated field. I won't give too much information on it as you could easily find it in my identity if I did, but let's just say it's a subcategory of law. I graduated about 9 years ago for anyone wondering. The system in my country is different than in the US, so I only studied for about 5 years. And I'm now a lawyer as well as a researcher. Just give me one moment, chat. Let me know where everyone's watching from. Let me know what you think, if you're enjoying it, if you have any suggestions. But yeah, so I graduated 9 years ago, and I'm now a lawyer and a researcher. I published some work here, and there is nothing too major about it, and no one outside my field knows my work. So yesterday, I went to a bar with a couple of friends who introduced me to one of their friends who works in the same field as me. I was pretty excited to meet him because it's rare to meet someone who works in that field. He doesn't exactly do the same thing as I do. He's not a lawyer, but a legal advisor. But we work on the same topics, so naturally we started talking about our work. At one point, we were discussing different opinions, so I explained mine to him, and he replied by saying that my opinion was based on nothing, while his was based on the work of a professional, you guessed it, me. He basically started explaining my work to me, but in a completely wrong way, and I missed all of the points. I asked him if he was sure that what the author meant, and he said that he was, because it was pretty simple, actually. For another good 20 minutes, he explained all of it to me in details. Like, I was a first year law student. I didn't say anything because it was pretty funny to watch him say things that were completely wrong with so much confidence. After the After that, the topic changed, and the night went on. But at the end of the night, right before leaving, I decided to tell him I was actually the person that wrote the work he had quoted, and that he hadn't really understood it. He reacted very badly and got angry, and told me that I had manipulated him to humiliate him. He yelled at me for not saying it was my work at the beginning. I simply replied he had embarrassed himself and left. I woke up this morning to text from my friend saying I was wrong for causing drama and tension, and that I could have been nicer to their friend. I'm not sure if I'm in the wrong here. I mean, yes, I could have told him right away, but is it that big of a deal? I'm not exactly sure. Who's the a-hole in this situation? So if you guys are just joining, we're doing Am I the A-hole on Reddit? If you didn't hear the whole story, this guy's basically went on a date with this girl, he read her research paper, and then completely misunderstood it and mansplained it to her. I mean, to be fair, it was her research paper, and yeah, I don't think she's the a-hole. If you think she's the a-hole, give a poopy emoji, and if you think she's right, give a thumbs up emoji. Let's just see. Let's give everyone a moment to process. But sure, otherwise, we can move along to the next story now. Am I the a-hole for threatening to sue both the school and the family of my daughter's bully? I, 30-year-old male, and my husband, 33-year-old male, have an 11-year-old daughter who's been going through severe bullying at school. It just keeps getting worse. It started with just name calling, but has gotten worse over the past few weeks. Context, she is adopted, which is something we've always been open about and celebrated as part of her story. Recently, some kids found out about her adoption and started saying horrible things, telling her stuff like her birth mother didn't want her. They tell her that she's unwanted, tell her she's a reject, which is not the case. Her mother loved her very much to the point she literally gave her life so she could be here. But if this wasn't enough, a few days ago, she came home in tears with her hair butchered. They cut off 2 inches of her ponytail while in class, all while taunting her names and laughing at her reaction. They will follow her through the halls to make fun of her on a regular basis now. Both my husband and I have been in touch with the school about the bullying more times than I can count. I emailed, even showed up in person to speak with teachers and the principals, but all I got were empty promises that they'd look into it. Nothing's changed, and my daughter's mental health has taken a severe hit, and she's struggling with anxiety, struggling to sleep, and now begs us not to send her to school. Finally, out of frustration and feeling like no one was taking this seriously, we reached out to a lawyer to explore legal action against both the school and the bully's family. Only when the school and her parents learned we were considering legal action did they start to act. Suddenly, the school calls me to say they're moving the bully out of my daughter's class, and they claim they had a talk with her. The girl's parents reached out too, saying they'd talk to their daughter and promised it would stop. But honestly, I don't believe them. It feels like they're all saying this to get me to back off and avoid the legal consequences. I worry that once the dust settles, things will go right back to how they were, and my daughter will still be dealing with this. My family thinks I should give the school and parents a chance now that they're finally taking action. But I feel like it's all for show. So do you guys think that because this man's daughter is being bullied, they're calling her names, they're cutting off her ponytail, do you think he's right to take legal action against them? Personally, I don't agree with bullying. I don't stand for anything of that nature. So I think this guy's completely in the right here, and I don't think he's the a-hole in this situation. But if you guys think he's the a-hole in the situation, give a thumbs down, or give a thumbs up if you think he's in the right here. But sure, if you guys are just tuning in now, we're doing Am I the A-hole from Reddit stories. And yeah, I'd love to hear your feedback, where you're watching. Pop a little message in chat. Let me know where you're from or what time it is. But sure, I'm in South Africa at the moment. It's very rainy outside. There's weather warnings been issued. It's been interesting, but we'll move along to the next story. Am I the a-hole for offering to sell my seat to honeymooners? I was flying from Melbourne to Dubai. I paid for premium economy seat because it is a 14-hour flight and I wanted to be comfortable. The person in the next seats had been upgraded, and I asked if I could switch seats with their wife, as they had just gotten married and were on a honeymoon. I congratulated him on his wedding and asked where his wife was sitting. He pointed towards the back of the plane in economy. Of course. I declined to switch seats. He asked if there was any way to convince me. I offered to switch if he paid the difference between the seats. It's quite a large amount. I'd been lucky to get mine at a decent price. It probably would have only cost him about 1,000 Australian dollars. He said they were on a budget for their honeymoon. I congratulated once and put in my earbuds. He muttered that I was an a-hole. I said he was being unreasonable for taking the upgrade instead of either sitting with his wife or giving it to her. I told my wife about the incident and she thinks I should have done the nice thing. So, this one's a little bit complicated, you know. You've got somebody that's just gotten married on the one hand, but then on the other hand, you've got somebody that's paid for the seat and has been entitled to it. So, would you guys have moved seats to let the couple be together? Or would you have stayed in the same seats? You know, this guy paid a lot of money for his seats and he was there on time, he booked it, you know, and if this really was the case, why did this guy, this new husband, leave his new wife in the back of the plane? You know, surely there would have been 3 seats at the back of the plane. The husband, the wife, and someone else. Surely the husband could have sat with the wife, type of thing. Because what was going through his mind to leave his wife at the back of the plane and then expect the person who has paid for their seat rightfully to move? I think that's extremely unreasonable. So, what do you guys think? Would you have moved or would you have stayed in your seats? Me personally, I definitely would have stayed in that seat. So, moving on to the next story. Am I the a-hole for asking my boyfriend to kick out his friends when I get home? Basically, my boyfriend, Dan, who's a male and 27 years old, and I, 25 female, both work full time. Dan and his friends, 4 guys, all in their late 20s, all work from home, and they like to meet up and hang out when they work. Great, happy for them. They'll rotate between their houses, meeting up for lunch, and kind of extending that into a post-work hangout. The thing is, all of his friends live alone. Dan and I live together. One of my biggest pet peeves is having random people in my house when I get home from work. I hate it so much. I just want to take my shoes off and relax, and I can't do that if there's 4 dudes that I don't really know in my living room and kitchen. I spoke to Dan about potentially removing our house from the rotation, or at least taking his friends out around the time I get home. He said that was controlling, which maybe it is. He also said it wouldn't be fair for them to host every week and for him to just skate by. I get that. I do. But I feel like I'm a variable that isn't being accounted for here. Honestly, I'm conflicted here, so I figured I'd ask them, am I an a-hole for not wanting my boyfriend's friends over when I get home? You know, this one, there's a lot of aspects to this, making it a little bit complicated. You know, on the one hand, this woman gets home from work after long days of shift, and this guy's or her boyfriend's just hanging out with his friends. You know, on the one hand, it's his house, but it's also her house. But when you're in a relationship like that, there's compromises that have to be made. You know, so if it's only 1 day a week, I feel like that's quite reasonable, especially if he's going over to see his friends too. You know, on the one hand, she could go do some errands after work, because it's only about an hour that they're there after she gets home and then they leave. You know, she could go run some errands. She could go see her own friends. But, you know, what would you guys do? Would you say it's unreasonable? Would you say it's not? Welcome to everyone that's watching at the moment. Hi to Zame. How's everyone doing? We're doing Am I the A-hole today? And yeah, we've got a few more stories lined up. This one's a little bit ridiculous. Just bear with me on this next one. So, my colleague loves her unborn child more than me. Am I the a-hole? I'm a male in my 30s. I have a female work friend that I've been friends with for 3.5 years. We do everything together. Well, almost everything, including interstate trips for work, lunches, and drinks. She recently fell pregnant and is due later this year. Randomly, she told me that she loves her unborn child more than me, and I said to her that was deeply offensive because she hasn't even met her child and they might turn out to be a complete a-hole. I asked her if she had read We Need to Talk About Kevin's. I got a lot of blowback for saying this, but it isn't irrational to love someone you have never met more than a good friend. Am I the a-hole in this situation? So I think with utmost certainty this person could very well be the a-hole. This child isn't born, his colleague isn't pregnant, and he's created an unrealistic scenario. Or not an unrealistic, but something that hasn't happened yet type of thing. So it's not complicated, it's honestly just a little bit strange. This woman can, it's literally just a coworker. It's just a coworker, you know? So I don't know, what would you guys do? Let's hear what you guys think. Um, so let's move on to the next story while we wait for you guys. But this next story goes, am I the a-hole for parking near someone my wife knew during camp drop-off and making her mad? This morning I dropped off my wife and our kids at summer camp. The parking lot had plenty of open spots, but I parked next to another parent who was unloading. I left extra space, probably 2 or 3 feet more than usual. I wasn't blocking or crowding anyone. As we were driving in, my wife said, "Oh, that's insert name here. I know her." When she saw the parents ahead of us, I didn't know who it was, but since she recognized her, I figured it was totally fine to park nearby. Honestly, I thought she might even prefer it since we knew somebody. I also parked close because I was trying to stay near the van. They're all traveling in it to make unloading easier. In the past, she's gotten annoyed when I park too far away, so I thought I was doing the helpful thing. As soon as I parked, she got irritated and said something like, "All these open spots and you park right next to her?" I said something along the lines of, "If I had parked further away, you would have gotten mad at me for parking too far." That made her even more upset. She said, "Don't get out of the car," so I couldn't help her unload all the bags. So I stayed put while she got out and unloaded everything herself in front of other parents. It made me look like the guy who just sits there while his wife does all the work. Later, she said she didn't understand why I would park next to someone who was unloading their car. That wasn't what I meant at all. I felt like I couldn't win either way and was just trying to make things easier. Am I the a-hole? Edit, I was not comfortable with the idea of our kids attending the camp without a parent. At 9 years old, I feel they're too young to be around unfamiliar adults overnight, especially in college dorm where boys and girls are placed in separate rooms with 2 to 3 people and potentially strangers. I didn't want to send them at all unless one of us could be there. My wife strongly wanted them to go, so she volunteered to chaperone them as a compromise to make me feel more comfortable. This one's a little bit strange. There's a bit more multifaceted aspects to it, but why could this guy have just not gotten out the car? It's, you know, like the wife's being a little bit unreasonable by saying that he couldn't park next to somebody that they knew. But on the other hand, he could have also just gotten out the car and offered her a hand, help her unload the car, get the kids settled, and be on his way. There was no need for this drama. But yeah, what do you guys think? What do you think he's in the right, or do you think he's in the wrong in this situation? Because it's interesting. It's very interesting. But we're gonna move along onto our next story. If you guys are just tuning in, we're doing Am I the A-hole? And I would love some opinions. Give me a thumbs up if you're enjoying. Give me a poopy emoji if you're not. And yeah, we'll carry on going here. So this next one is titled, Am I the a-hole for not giving my sister my wife's clothes? My wife was a corporate lawyer and mediator. She had some very nice work clothes. She was diagnosed with ovarian cancer and was gone in 2 years. The last 6 months of her life was hell. My sister Sarah didn't do anything for us during that time. My wife never liked her. I do not like her myself. She is a selfish cow. My wife's wake, she started asking about my wife's clothes, and I brushed her off. She wanted to pick out a few pieces to remember my wife by, and I ignored her. It's been 6 months, and I've attended my mom's birthday, but I'm still not in the mood to deal with people. Then Sarah comes, asking about my wife's clothes. I told her my wife wanted me to donate them to this women's shelter, and she often helped. It will help women in need with their own court cases, court appointments, and job interviews. My sister Sarah said my wife was even selfish in death. I asked her what did she mean. She started going off on how my wife's always thought she was better than her, and it's not that far off that the clothes are going to charity and not to family. I told my sister I would rather see my wife's clothes lit on fire than on her back. My sister started crying, and my mom came over to see what was wrong. My mom told me to be easy on my sister because she was taking my wife's deaths hard. The insanity of that coming out of my mom's mouth made me grab my gift and leave. My mom acts like I had to ruin her birthday by being melodramatic, but I cannot believe their emotional blackmail towards me over clothes that they have no right to. Guys, this one's a bit hectic, but I think this guy's right. The sister has no entitlement to the wife's clothes. The wife could decide what she wanted to do with the clothes beforehand, and she said she wanted them to go to a shelter. Well, then that's fine. They must go to a shelter because what else? The husband can keep them, sure, but I don't think it should go to the sister. I think that's quite a big stretch. But sure, that's everything for today. I hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure you leave a thumbs up or a comment from where you're watching. And yeah, tune in tomorrow for the next live stream. Thank you so much.